מזמור לדוד. אדוני רואי לא יחסר, בנודש ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני. נפשי ישובב ינחני במעגלי צדק, למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות, לא יירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי. תשענת בשם מראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
As Kenner Schiffman opened with the chanting of Psalm 23 in Hebrew, please join with me in the recitation of Psalm 23 in the English. I'll talk louder. We'll now recite Psalm 23 in English. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. There is a traditional passage that is recited by a husband to his wife, children to their mother. From our Bible, it's called Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. It is from our book of Proverbs, and it's fitting for Marilyn. Eshet Chayil meyimsa v'rachot mipnei mikra, batak ba lebala v'shala lo yachzar. What a precious find is a woman of valor. Her worth is far beyond rubies. Her husband puts his confidence in her and lacks no good thing. She is good to him, never bad all the days of her life. She opens up her hand to the needy. She extends her hand to the poor. She is clothed with strength and splendor. She looks to the future cheerfully. She opens her mouth with wisdom. Her tongue is guided by kindness. She oversees the activity of her household. She never eats the bread of idleness. Her children come forward and bless her. Her husband praises her, saying, Many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty vain, but a God-fearing woman is much to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hand, and whenever people gather, her deeds will speak her praise. We gather here today to remember with great love Marilyn Feldman, a loving daughter, a loving sister, a loving wife, a loving mother, a loving grandmother, a loving aunt, and a loving friend. The rabbis teach an interesting idea. They say that it is not births that we should celebrate, but it's when we pass that we should celebrate. They say the day of one's death should be more precious than the day of one's birth. I know it sounds a little bit confusing and odd. And they compare our lives to that of a ship. And they say that when a cruise ship leaves its port, there's often great fanfare, parades, bands, banners, and the ship is sent off with a lot of joy. But the truth is, the rabbis say, no one knows what will happen to that ship on its path, what seas and storms it may encounter, what obstacles stand in its way. The rabbis say that when a ship returns home, safely, back to port, That is time to celebrate. That is a time to say it has returned home safely after a long voyage. And so the rabbis say that when someone lives a long and full life, filled with love, filled with family, that we should rejoice and give thanks, for she has departed from this world and returned back to that port and harbor safely. And so we can say today that Marilyn has departed from this world with a good name, reaching the age of 90 years old. Marilyn has left behind many in mourning. Her children, Karen, better known to us all as Kiki, Gary and Linda, Fran and John, and the diamonds in her crown, all that she has lived for, her 4 granddaughters, Danielle and Ashley, Hannah and Haley, and her sister, Barbara, who was not able to travel in from Florida, but I know as I spoke to her is watching via the internet stream. Marilyn now joins her beloved husband, Herb, after 40 wonderful years of marriage, suddenly passing away 25 years ago. Now they are reunited. Marilyn joins her parents of blessed memory, David and Tilly Salzman, her brother-in-law, Bill. She joins them all in their eternal home in heaven. Now I'd like to call up her daughter, Fran, and son-in-law, John, for remarks.
So forgive me, but I'm going to have to read. I would like to be just saying this ad lib, but I don't think I would get through it. And even now, I think the Browns have better odds of winning the Super Bowl than me keeping my composure, but we're going to go for it. Those who have known my mom over the years know how incredibly kind and generous she was. I was fortunate to not only have been the benefactor of her kindness and her generosity, but also had the good fortune to see it at work in helping others. Growing up, my Grandma Tilly, my mom's mom, became a widow at a relatively young age. Sadly, Grandma had a number of friends who were also widowed. Many of them didn't have children or other family members living in the Cleveland area. No matter. My mom always ensured that each of them had a place to come for the holidays, for birthdays, or just a random dinner. But more than that, Mom would periodically call them just to see how they were doing or to share a story or two. DNA aside, she made sure they had family. She didn't do this out of obligation. It was just who she was. I also remember my mom's all-consuming dedication to some charitable organizations such as True Sisters in the City of Hope. I've spent a whole career in corporate America, but I don't know that I've ever worked harder than she did for these organizations. She was truly devoted to helping others, regardless of whether it came with a paycheck. Later in life, John and I were married and living in Palm Desert, California. For those who aren't familiar with Palm Desert, it is, or was anyway, a quiet resort and retirement community in the Palm Springs area. This is before Coachella, and if there's anybody under age 30, you know what Coachella is. The rest of you, just bear with me. Anyway, John and I were anomalies in the desert in that, A, we were young, and B, we were working. When our eldest daughter, Hannah, was born, my mom came out to visit. She would strap Hannah into the stroller and walk the neighborhood several times a day. But on just the first day that she was there, I remember John and I coming home from work and my mom telling us detailed stories about every one of our neighbors. She knew their names, she knew where they were from, all about their families. I think she even knew their favorite food. She knew everything. So as the saying goes, my mom never met a stranger. Without question, my mom's greatest joy was her grandchildren. She never had enough time with them or enough photos of them. Her home was a gallery of family photos. While I never doubted that she loved Karen, Gary, and me, there is no question that we were extraneous once the grandchildren came along. One of my favorite stories, and Haley's going to hate me for this, but one of my favorite stories was when my mom came to stay with our girls in Atlanta while John and I were on a vacation. The girls were probably 4 or 5 years old at the time. Anyway, my mom loved to shop, a trait that she's passed on to her grandchildren. One day, Haley wanted to go to the mall. Well, the problem was they had just been to the mall the day before. So this is really actually inconceivable to me, but my mom actually said no to Haley. So as a 4-year-old might do, Haley threw a temper tantrum, right? She still does that from time to time. Again, I have trouble imagining this, but apparently my mom sent Haley up to her room for a timeout. So Haley, of course, was not at all happy. She probably went into shock and didn't know what happened to the grandmother who couldn't say no, So at any rate, my mom, a short time later, my mom's in the kitchen and there's this loud knock on the door. And she walks over to the front door and she opens it. And there's a police officer standing there. And he says, "Ma'am," I'm going to try to do a little southern drawl here. He says, "Ma'am," I said, "we got a call from a young lady. And apparently there's a mean grandma in this house. And by law, we have to come check it out." So somehow my mom survived that. She didn't go into cardiac arrest, and even more amazingly, somehow Haley survived that. And they became best friends from that moment on. This is the hard part. I will never forget the last week with my mom. She was in a bad way. Excuse me. I think she must have been in a lot of discomfort. But true to form, she never complained. She didn't complain when John almost drowned her in our boat. Maybe he'll tell you about that. She didn't complain the last several years when she lost the ability to do so many things that many of us take for granted. And she didn't complain in her final days. Though she didn't speak much at the time, she still joked a bit. She complimented the nurses. And she said thank you each time one of the caregivers did something for her, even though I'm sure it caused her some pain. And her final days, she even gave us some I love yous. She set the bar very high. I will live the rest of my days trying to be half as kind and generous as she was, but know that I will undoubtedly fall short. I will love and miss her the rest of my days.
Well, Grandma, I've had the joy of knowing you for over 30 years. And I was thinking last night, I remember the first time I met you. We were in California, and Fran was living at Lake Merritt. And I remember I had to meet your mom, and meet your husband, Herbie, me, and I was scared. So the night before I get ready for a meeting, I started practicing Mr. Feldman this and how I was going to say it, and Mrs. Feldman, how I'm going to do this and everything. And I show up and say hello, and within 2 seconds, I felt like family. She's very open. In fact, it was so loving. After one day, I could joke with her, saying to Sapsonite she carried around with her, what she lovingly called a purse, was a little too big. She loved her grandchildren. I just always remember she had a necklace with all 4 grandchildren, and you look at her and her eyes just light up when she talks about them. She'd say Danielle and Ashley and Hannah and Haley, and she loved it. And we'd always joke that Haley was her favorite. We know she loved all hers, but I think what it was is, the way I described knowing Grandma was, she kind of just bebopped through life. She followed a path, and wherever the path went, It was always exciting and fun, and it was always going to be good on the other end, which was always nice. And she kind of bestowed that on Haley. So we're going to see Grandma for a long time because Haley just bebops, and she's kind of joyful and happy and everything. And so they're kind of two peas in a pod. And always felt like family with Grandma. And every time we went, it was always welcome. She'd come to our house, stay for 2, 3, 4 weeks, 3 months. It didn't matter. She was always welcome, and we just went around life. And then some of the memories, Fran talked about when Hannah was born, she coming around. Well, she was making crochet dolls for True Sisters. And I'll remember this sound forever. It click, 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 and she'd be sitting there, legs crossed, smiling, making her crochet dolls, watching Hannah and everything else. And that sound is always very joyful. And if you look, all the pictures you'll see, we have a lot of Grandma in water. She can't swim. So Fran says, I almost drowned her in a boat. Well, we had a 18.5 Sea Ray. It's not the QE2, but since Grandma couldn't swim, we had to get her in a boat before we got it into the water because there's no docks. So we actually went to the Lake Lanier, and we had to have a stepladder so Grandma can climb into the boat. So that's probably a pretty good sight, watching these 4 people running around and a lady walking up in a ladder getting in the boat. So she got on the boat, and she sat up front, and we were driving. And I want to say this rogue wave, was probably bigger than Edmund Fitzgerald, swamped and hit our boat, and I really thought we sunk it. And it came out. Grandma was smiling, and it was a hot day, so she was cooled off. She's ready to do it again. And we always had a tradition. Since we moved to Atlanta, we always had Thanksgiving. My mom and dad would come down, my brother David, Kiki and Gary and Linda and her family come down a lot. And she'd almost be like a machisco. We kind of just came from the same milk. We play cards, we gamble, and everything. And Grandma always seemed to win. Then we'd also go down to Florida then, because she liked to go to Florida. And then we'd go to the horse races. And gosh, she won then too. So we should probably follow her around. So I just thought it was, so she'd win in cards, and then she'd win in the horse races. So I just thought it was the easy way for her to get money so she could buy some of her new Samsonite purses. She always went fishing with us. She caught all the fish. I didn't catch anything, which is always sad, but we never ate the fish. We threw it back, which was fun. But I remember most, she always had a great smile, and she beamed. And she loved her grandchildren very, very much. Even in her last days, her words were Danielle Aaron, Ashley Heather, Haley Cole, and Hannah Michelle. She always loved them. Grandma, we'll miss you very much. And I love you, and your spirit will stay within Haley, and we'll always be able to see you. Thank you.
The rabbis say the words that come from the heart enter our hearts, and you truly brought Marilyn to life for all of us. Today on the Jewish calendar is a joyous day. It is the middle of the festival of Sukkot, the festival of tabernacles. The rabbis call this Man Simchatenu, the days of our greatest joy and rejoicing. They actually say that today we are not allowed to give eulogies. Having said that, though, of course, we want to take a few more minutes to bring a lot of honor and praise to Marilyn. The theme of Sukkot, the holiday that we're in the midst of, where we build our sukkah, our temporary shelter, we hold our lulav and etrog, the 4 species, reminds us of many things, the temporary nature of life, the fragility of life, but it also is about gratitude. Gratitude for our bounty. The original biblical reason of Sukkot is gratitude for our harvest. And Marilyn truly lived with gratitude. She had an attitude of gratitude, a positivity, an exuberance that sort of surrounded her, a true zest for life, which she shared with her family. Always on the go, she marched to the beat of her own drum. Kind and upbeat, she was all about fun. A social butterfly, Marilyn loved people, could make friends with everyone. Caring, always sharing compliments with you, whether friend or stranger. Extremely giving, Marilyn loved taking care of you, which usually meant taking you shopping. Family was number one. It's what she lived for and what kept her going. Born and raised here in Cleveland, Marilyn grew up in Cleveland Heights on Beechwood, graduating from Heights High, working in retail at Halley Brothers. Her sister Barbara was 6 years younger, usually in different places in life except when they both had kids and were so close in those years before Barbara moved to Detroit. Barbara told me that Marilyn and Herbie were set up on a blind date by a neighbor on your street named Iggy. Your father, David, had his tobacco shop on Prospect Avenue near the old May Company. The story goes that Herbie was a regular customer at the tobacco shop. And another version of the story of how they met goes that Mom was either working in the shop or Dad, David, and Herbie struck up a conversation. Regardless of the facts, it was destined to be that Herb and Marilyn would meet, start dating, and hit it off. Barbara told me that Marilyn spent every weekend during their courtship fishing with Herbie. She didn't enjoy it back then. He made her bait the hooks. But she did catch the fish still. But she did it so she could be with her Herb. They were married on November 16th, 1952 at Heights Temple with Rabbi Rosenthal and Cantor Meisels officiating, with a beautiful reception at the Alcazar Hotel. They lived in an apartment on Cliffview. Soon they'd move to the family house in Groveland on University Heights. Marilyn was so devoted to her Herbie and his parents as well. They loved shopping. They loved eating out together, especially at the Pewter Mug. The kids remember all those road trips in the back of the family station wagon, with Dad driving, of course, to Youngstown to see family, and that epic 5-week cross-country trip to California. Dad had his printing supply business, and Mom would continue to work retail at Donna Lee Children's Clothing Shop, where Mom spent more than her paycheck on clothes for the kids. They were the best-dressed kids in school, though. Marilyn was so proud of her children. You always made her so happy. Marilyn loved her daughter-in-law, Linda, and son-in-law, John, who became like her own children. Becoming a grandma was her greatest joy, as you heard. Her 4 granddaughters were her everything, and she bought everything for you. When a new movie from Disney came out on VHS tape, she got it for you, even if you didn't have a VHS player anymore. You like Beanie Babies? You didn't get just one. You got 100 Beanie Babies. If she knew what you liked, she'd buy them all for you. Even those Mary, Kate, and Ashley movies, except for the Christmas editions. She had that special necklace, as you said, symbolizing the 4 granddaughters. It was her most priceless possession, even more priceless than her big purses, which she loved. The grandkids could do no wrong. Marilyn loved collecting, if you couldn't tell. Beanie Babies, Marilyn Monroe collectibles, teacups, and so much more. She loved playing cards and her Maj. She loved the color purple. She loved eating out and going shopping. She loved music, and she loved babies. A member of the Red Hat Women's Group, City of Hope and True Sisters, so involved the president of fundraising for so many years. She loved knitting and taught Haley how to knit, always making her crochet dolls, Afghans for everyone in the family. Fran, that purple sweater that never quite fit. She loved purple so much that Gary painted her bedroom purple for her. When the kids were growing up, Mom would cook. She made an amazing brisket, stuffing for Fran and John's Thanksgiving feasts, and her noodle pudding for True Sisters. But her cooking quickly turned into her ordering at restaurants. She always loved her Diet Coke with lemon, and if the restaurant served Pepsi, she'd get iced tea. A big Indians fan, Kiki would take her to games in her wheelchair. Grandma was known for her big earrings, her big purse, and her lipstick, but most important was her kindness and generosity. She was fun. She'd go deep-sea fishing, and she'd be the one to catch the fish. She loved shows at Playhouse Square, concerts like Barry Manilow. Those horse racing, she always bet number 9, so that's what you should do, John. Bet number 9. We have to take a moment to recognize the amazing devotion of this family for Marilyn, especially her children in town, Gary, and most especially Kiki. Kiki was there for her for everything. You devoted your life these last 10 years or so to being Mom's primary caregiver. Not a skilled nurse, you became one as you took care of her. You were her best friend, her chauffeur, her confidant. You moved in together at the house and then Acacia until Mom moved to Menorah just 2 years ago. You did everything for her, Kiki. You made sure she could go out, eat, shop, go down to Florida, to the pool, to the casino, to shows, to tribe games, to see her kids, her granddaughters, her friends. And I know the entire family is grateful to you. You helped make Marilyn such a significant part of this family and your lives so that she could live a full life. Marilyn, always so full of life, held out as her health declined. She still wanted to get every last ounce of life out of life to be with you, most especially her granddaughters, to watch another Indians' victory, to make it to her 90th birthday, exactly 1 month ago. Always so strong, always positive, she was content, well cared for, with respect and love from the whole family. You gave her the dignity to be the matriarch, to be Mom and Grandma till the end. We can now say that she's at peace. She's suffering no more. May her name always be for a blessing. And we say, Amen. We'll rise now as the cantor recites the memorial prayer.
Eloah selichot, Chanun v'rachum, Erech apayim v'rav chesed, Hametzech parapesha, V'akravat yesha, V'nucha nechona, Tachad כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, נשמת מלכה בת דוד, שהלכה לעולמה. אנא בעל הרחמים, זכרה לה לטובה כל זכויותיה וצדקותיה בארצות החיים, ופתח לה שערי צדק ויורם, שערי חמלה וחנינה, בשדה כנפיך הסתיריה לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים ונשמתם. אדוני הוא נחלתם, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר אמן.
O God of forgiveness, you who are gracious and compassionate, patient and kind, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Malka, the daughter of David and Tilly, Marilyn Feldman, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that you remember all the worthy and righteous deeds she has performed in this world. May she find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And we say, Amen. Please be seated. Following our ceremony, interment will follow at Mount Olive Cemetery. The family will then receive friends at the home of Gary and Linda Feldman, 7370 Joseph Drive in Solon. Following services today until 4, And then they'll resume tonight from 7 to 9 p.m. We'll have a minyan tonight at 7 o'clock. They'll also be sitting Tuesday and Wednesday, 2 to 4 and 7 to 9 p.m. Those who'd like to contribute in Marilyn's name can do so to City of Hope or the Jewish Federation of Cleveland.